Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honour the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Vanessa Hetherington, Associate Director at RPS and a globally experienced quantity surveyor whose two-decade career spans top-tier firms across Australia and the UK. Vanessa has led commercial and infrastructure projects at every scale, combining technical precision with a passion for creating better workplace cultures. A former NAWIC D&I committee member, she was instrumental in driving the Not So Little Things research into microaggressions, helping to bring visibility to the subtle behaviours that impact psychological safety. So thank you so much for joining us, Vanessa. It's awesome
No,
to have you here.
thank you. Thank you. I look forward to this.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's awesome. And also being a fellow D&I committee member as well with NAWIC. So that's
Yes.
great. So
Yes.
one thing I always love to ask our guests, because I get really curious, and
Mm.
particularly when people have been in the industry so long, how did you actually get started in the industry?
Well, I sort of fell into it really. I didn't know anyone who worked in construction in my family. But I knew I liked the idea of property construction. I've always liked sort of seeing how things are built around me. Um, And I saw this advert for a quantity surveyor role. I didn't know what a quantity surveyor was, had no idea. And I was like, oh, I'll just apply, what's the worst that can happen? And I had the interview, and later on the guy told me once I got the job, he told me on his notes that she has no clue as to what we do. But somehow they gave me the job. And I started at a company called Turner and Townsend in the UK, a large QS firm in the UK. And yeah, and then it's just gone from there really. So it's just a bit of a happy accident, I suppose.
A happy accident, yes. And so
Yeah.
then how did you come from the UK to Australia?
So my husband also works in the industry, so he is also a QS as well, and he got a transfer through Lend-Lease with the skills shortage visa, so we were able to come across quite easily, which was fortunate for us. So yeah, so that's been definitely an experience. We came across in 2019, just
Oh,
before the
wow.
big fires, just before COVID. So it's been a bit of an interesting time. So we've
Yeah.
been here just over 6 years now. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now, as a quantity surveyor, like you're involved in a lot of different parts of the industry that not many people know about. So, for someone who doesn't know what quantity surveying is, would you kindly share what's involved with that, please?
Yeah, sure. We manage basically the budget for a construction project. So we can work from an idea, concept in a client's head, from the feasibility all the way to final account and beyond. So we at the upfront stages, we'll be looking at sort of designs, measuring and costing up architectural engineering designs and putting a figure to those, and then sort of managing that through the design phases all the way until it's actually um, tendered out to contractors. And then we'll do the tender analysis, reviewing that, and then also during the post-contract stages, once someone has actually been chosen and selected as a contractor, we'll be managing how much that contractor gets paid and just reviewing any cost implications of the project. So it's quite a varied role.
And you're involved from before a project starts right through to when a project is through execution phase as well. So to actually see that whole part would be quite
Yes.
an eye opener as well, I imagine.
Exactly. In some projects, it can be years, years
Yeah.
before you get to that stage. But yeah, it's good to see sort of how the project evolves and how the design changes and the sort of the budget constraints and restrictions and those kind of things.
And that's something that is obviously a big issue in the industry at the moment with budget constraints. So what kind of stuff are you seeing with the work that you do?
So in the industry at the moment, we're seeing some surprising costs that have come in. Sometimes it's due to sort of the labour and preliminaries with skill shortages in many areas of the industry. Um, Also, sometimes we're struggling to get some contractors to tender for certain projects. So trying to find the right kind of contractor for each project can be a little bit take a little bit of work and research. Um, but in New South Wales in particular, we are seeing quite a lot of different types of projects, not necessarily sort of the big towers and residential projects and commercial, but a lot of sort of refurbishments, yeah, fit outs. We're seeing some quite a bit in leisure and in heritage, and there's a leisure area. So yeah, so it's been quite varied for us, and we because we don't sort of work in a particular sector, we're able to pivot quite well.
I love that. I love that. And you touched on some of the different projects that you're seeing now. You've got a very 20 years or more than 20 years experience in this industry. What's some of the projects that you've worked on that really have stood out for you, either in the UK or Australia?
Um, in the UK, let me think now. Um, when I was in the UK, I worked a lot on educational and health projects. So I worked on a big project at Southampton University. It was called the Mountbatten Building, and that was one of the first NEC projects I'd worked on. But it was where they weren't actually, if anyone who doesn't know what NEC is, basically it's a very there's a lot of administration to keep it ticking along as it should be and to follow the contract. And it wasn't being administered in that way. So there were basically the variations are meant to be agreed as you go, and there's a certain time frame to get those agreed. But for some reason in this project there were like 100 variations and none of them have been agreed, so I was brought in to help review that and update and assess those variations, and that was a bit of an eye-opener as to how NEC should be working.
Mm.
So yeah, so that was an interesting project. That one sticks out in my mind. And then um I'm trying to think. I worked on a couple of dispute projects in the UK, but they were probably more for the Middle East, and they were large disputes. And I just remember one looking through the contract because I was reviewing the contract, and there was like they did a blood oath, and it was actually like actual blood in the contract, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen that before. So
Oh my,
yeah, so that was very different, and just highlights how people do different things in different countries and cultures. How yeah.
wow. Geez, okay. That's one I have not heard, so that's a new one.
I know, I hadn't seen that before either.
So then how if you're in the UK based and then you're navigating disputes in the Middle East, like how does that actually work? Because obviously there's different cultures that you're dealing with and like you said about a blood oath and stuff as well. Like how do you navigate the different cultures and the different beliefs and how they manage contracts?
Yeah, you really have to gain a bit of an understanding of that and speaking to understand a bit more from the client how they like to do things. And I was working with a lot of expert witnesses who had worked a lot in that arena and in those markets and countries. So I learned a lot from them, and so it's sort of leaning on their experience and just being sensitive
Mm,
to different cultures and understanding how people have different views and trying to incorporate that into the work that we do.
mm. And that's a good thing because it sort of gives you an appreciation of, diversity and
Mm,
different cultures and, all those different aspects as well. And, like I know you were very instrumental with the NAWIC Diversity and Inclusion Committee with
mm.
driving some research into certain behaviours that, really significantly impact women in the industry as well with the Not So Little Things report and the microaggressions. Would you like to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we wanted to highlight the fact that microaggressions do exist, and also highlight what they were, because a lot of people they might have heard the term and not really understand what it is. So just so people, if anyone's listening to this, I'll just say microaggressions. They're sort of and the subtle and sort of very small form of sort of I'm not even saying it properly. Um, Discriminatory behavior that can often be unintentional, but can cause quite a big impact on the victim in question. So an example might be actually I gave this example last week to someone and they were like, oh, I went to an event a few weeks ago and I was just putting my coat away in the cloakroom area, and then I turned around and this lady just handed me her coat, and she had assumed that I was the cloakroom attendant. And
Oh, wow.
I said to her, no, no, I'm here also for the event. I'm just, putting my own coat up. And she was like, she was in shock, and she obviously didn't intend to, like, insult me. But I thought to myself, oh, after so much, years in the industry,
Mm.
it made me feel like I just sort of didn't belong in a way. And I thought to myself, because my husband, he's also in the industry, I said to him, has anyone ever handed you their coat? And he was like, no, no, it hasn't happened to me before. So,
Mm.
so yeah, so it's just little things like that. But it can sort of, over time, as it builds up and it happens again and again and again, it can really, really impact on someone's sort of confidence and self-belief.
And I know that, we've called it through the committee, and through the research, it's that death by a thousand cuts.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. One
Mm.
cut not doesn't really make too much of a difference. But if yeah, but like by the thousandth cut, you're actually seriously seriously injured and bleeding. So yeah, that's definitely a good analogy. I like that. Yeah, I do like that one. And the research sort of showed that there are many people in the industry, 88% of people in the survey had suffered microaggressions, and it sort of
Mm.
highlights it that there's an issue in the industry, and sort of where that's coming from. The form, it's mostly verbal, it's coming from sort of supervisors and line managers. So yeah, so it really sort of gave a bit of substance behind that, and helps us to hopefully drive some change in the industry now that we can show and demonstrate that there is an issue.
So, as I touched on, like you were very instrumental in doing that. What was your fuel for that? What was the passion to be able to get that out there for you?
I think it was probably from myself being a victim of microaggressions, and even being a victim of sort of workplace bullying myself. So sort of having those experiences really wanted me to help to highlight that there is a problem in the industry, and to help others not have to go through the same things that I and many other people have had to go through.
Mm.
And when
Mm.
I listened to those, when I was part of those listening groups, just listening to the experiences of some of the women in the industry, it really was quite heartbreaking, sort of the impact it had on them, and sort of to their mental health and their confidence and self-esteem. And I felt all those things as well. So I really wanted to. That was really my driver, just because it was so personal to me. I really wanted to
Mm.
help make a bit of a change.
So, if you can, like, what's a situation that you've had that you've experienced, and what did you do to navigate it that, with the skills that you learnt from that experience that could potentially help someone else?
Yeah, I think when I first started in the industry, wasn't really aware of microaggressions. I just thought that was just the norm. So from the start of my career, I probably just not sort of normalized it, that I was always going to be asked for the tea and coffee, or I was just going to be, yeah, it was always going to be assumed that if I was with the sort of a male colleague, that he was always going to be the senior one, even if that wasn't the case. My worst experience in one company where I was experiencing very severe microaggressions, probably to the extent that it probably went down the area of bullying. And it really knocked my self-esteem, knocked my confidence. I was able to move teams, but no one in the company did anything, which was quite heartbreaking. You tell them that they can see it for themselves, they can see there's an issue going on, nothing happened. And in the end, I had to leave the company, like many people did. Had to leave the company and go somewhere else, and then choosing that next company, I was very specific about,
Mm.
looking for those signs, looking for anything that might be sort of a red flag. And it's one of those things that you shouldn't have to go through. That you shouldn't have to change a company
Mm.
to get back to who you are and yourself. So it is important that people sort of find their network, their connections, speak to people, try and confide in those around them, whether it's the HR team, but in many companies, people don't feel the HR teams
Mm.
really are the supportive ones. And sometimes when it's your line manager or supervisor that's actually doing the microaggressions, it makes it quite a difficult field to navigate. But I would definitely, now that NOWIC have that legal helpline, I would definitely reach out to that free legal helpline just to get initial advice. Because sometimes these things actually are quite unlawful, some of the things that people are doing, and people sort of start to normalize it. So yeah, so it's trying to find a network around you that can give you that extra support.
Yeah, and I think the network is really important because I know, one of the things that seemed to be a bit of a recurring theme through the focus groups and everything was
Mm,
people thought they were the only ones dealing with, and it kind of helped normalize it. So, what
yes.
kind of assurance, and you were obviously involved in all of those and listening to those conversations, and you said
Mm,
quite heartbreaking as well. Like for someone who's experiencing it, but they don't know that's actually what's going on.
mm.
Like, what does that look like for them?
Um, I suppose it can be so subtle that at first that people don't really realize it. That's the difficult thing about microaggressions. They might not necessarily realize it's happening to them at first, but then when it doesn't feel when in their gut they might realize this is not quite right. There's something not yeah right about this whole situation, and that's when they should really reach out to someone that they trust just to sort of play speak to them about it, explain what's going on, and see how they feel as well, and how if it's them overreacting. But sometimes it's not about overreaction, it's about how it makes you feel as a person. So what makes you feel one way might not make another person feel that way. And just because you feel it doesn't take the impact away from them. So it can be difficult even when you speak to people. Some people might, oh, it's just a joke. It's just, don't worry about it. Nothing to worry about. But it does get to you, and it gets to your deep in your core,
Mm,
and it can really, really impact someone. But I think other people also need to look around them and and be aware of it. So if it's happening to someone around them, they need to be willing to step in and say, okay, that's not right. That wasn't actually funny. Well, what do you mean by that? I don't really think that was appropriate. So it's also on the onlookers as well to sort of give that person a bit more extra support.
mm,
And if I heard this phrase about making the invisible visible, if you start to highlight things and start to throw it out
mm,
there, people start to say, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't be saying that, or actually that could hurt someone's feelings, and they actually start realizing what they're saying could have an issue.
mm. And because, like you said, it's 88% of
Mm,
people who are experiencing it. And I know even within that, when you look at the minority groups as well, like migrants, it was 100% that had experienced it, wasn't it?
yes, yeah, there was certain intersectionalities. I think people with a disability, 100%. Yeah, people from different cultures definitely had a higher instance of being affected by microaggressions. And when you add that extra factor in, it does make a difference.
So when you think about your situation that you shared, where it got to the point where you actually left,
Yeah.
and then that seems to be a recurring pattern of what came up through this research as well, that people, and I know I've been through that myself personally, where I've
Mm,
actually left companies as a result of that. Like
mm,
that is not sustainable for the individual and it's not sustainable for the industry. So what would you like to see, other than that bystander action of calling it out, what would you like to see companies actually start to do to be able to address these behaviors that are causing harm?
mm. I want them to really acknowledge that there is a problem, first of all. Really start to listen to the research, listen to the people around them, and say, okay, we've had, a number of people come forward, and we're not making any changes, so we need to make an actual difference, and put our words into action. So many companies have these, oh, we're amazing, we're doing all these things to help diversity and inclusion, and then actually when you delve into speak to people at the company, there's so many inherent issues that you're like, okay, it's all a bit sort of tokenistic, and they really need to actually live by the words that they're saying. So they need to, for example, I know people who have suffered microaggressions, and then the aggressor actually got a promotion even after they've spoken to their companies about it. And that shouldn't happen. They need to really factor in the behaviors of an individual into performance related aspects. And I must say that that's one of the performance things at my company currently, there is a cultural your sort of how you behave in the company is actually taken
Mm,
into a consideration. So it's a step forward. It's not perfect, nowhere is perfect, but
mm,
trying to um listen and learn. Companies really need to learn, and they probably need to find a way to. I know people have been talking about training, training, training. Training is great to some, um, you know, to a certain point, but it's more you want to sort of change the inherent behaviors in people, and that takes a
mm.
lot more than sort of an hour's course.
It
So,
does. It does
yeah,
because it's systemic. That's the issue as
exactly.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about like on the flip side of that, it's, obviously there's an awareness is what you said, obviously people need to have an awareness first, and then there's an education piece on
Mm,
that. But for me, it's also accountability. Like you said, that
yeah.
person who then had been the perpetrator and has been promoted. I mean, what does
Yeah.
that say from an accountability perspective?
Exactly, and it makes you think that that company likes to have in that culture, and that's what they want to have. So then it sort of drives out people who could be really good in that company, but don't want to be around individuals like that, and so they go and look for a job elsewhere. And the thing that I mentioned to a couple of people is that the research showed I think it was about 8% of people left the industry because of
Mm,
microaggressions, but we didn't really touch on how many people have left a company. And I think if we had actually put that in, that number would be quite startling to
mm.
companies and make them really sit up and listen, because every time a person leaves a company, that costs them so much money to have to replace them, and lost revenue, lost productivity, and
Mm.
it really and sometimes when you sort of throw those numbers out there, companies actually will actually listen because money money to them talks, so that's how
Money
they want to.
talks. Well,
Yeah.
the latest research that I have is that depending on the position, it's anywhere
Mm,
between 50 to $200,000, 50,000 to $200,000 per person when they leave a company.
mm,
Is what it's actually costing. And I think that's a good point, what you said, like if it was actually captured, how many times have you have you left a job as a result of this, not left the industry? Because
yeah,
you've left a job, I've left a job. How
yeah,
many of these other women
yeah.
have left a job as well?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then when you think about that as a compounding amount as well, like say all of us, even if it was the $100,000, for example, to
Mm,
replace us, and there was 300 of us,
mm,
that's a heck of a lot of money right there.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And people were like, okay, we have a serious problem that we can, there's companies, their bottom lines, their margins are really tight as it is. So if they can
Yeah.
have a good culture, retain their staff, have a reduction in those kind of costs, it would make a huge difference.
So you just touched on something there, to have a good culture. What does a good culture look like for you?
Um, for me, it's sort of a place where you want to come in, you want to work with the people around you, you're sort of inclusive, you're thinking about others and how you approach things. There's different ways of, it's not one set way, there's different ways of getting to the same outcome. And as long as you get there, it doesn't matter how you go about it. For example, my husband, he is a last minute, he likes to do things, he has to have the pressure and everything's done like the last minute. I'm the kind of person I like to take my time and spread it out over if I've got a week to do it, I won't like leave it to the end. I'll try and do it throughout the whole week so I don't have that pressure at the end. So,
Yeah.
and it's completely different working styles, but we get to the same outcome, and we both do a good job, but it's just letting people have their own way of doing things if that works for them. So yeah.
And what about like, there's a lot of push at the moment to get people back into the offices and all that sort of stuff as well. Obviously, I mean, you landed in 2019 to Australia,
Yeah.
the year before the world turned to custard, essentially. And,
I know.
you know, so what about those sorts of things as well with helping with the culture?
Yeah, I think those kind of things really do make a difference where possible. If people working from home gives people that flexibility, whether it's to do with care and responsibilities. Sometimes you just don't feel like communicating with anyone in the day. You just rather sit at home, get on with your work, and doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
just have those off days. Or people maybe who are sort of neurodiverse. Sometimes it's harder for them to work in a sort of set environment. But just giving people that flexibility to do what works best for them will get the most out of each individual. And I know I've noticed trains. I come in, I work from home sort of 50-50. And and I've noticed the trains are a lot busier because people are, as you say, being mandated to come back in.
Yeah.
And that extra commute does make I really feel it. If I do every day in the office, I really do feel it, like the commute, and I'm rushing back to try and get my daughter from childcare, and then the
Yeah.
trains are delayed, and then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm running
Yeah.
late, and that extra stress when I could just be, just walking from the house. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I appreciate that maybe some jobs can't necessarily be, might not be able to work from home on certain jobs, and I understand that, but where you can, make a yeah, makes a difference for a lot of people.
And I think, like, even with your example that you gave there, like, you're rushing to get back so you can actually pick up your child
Mm,
from daycare and things like that as well, because daycares have to close, like, they're not
yes.
staying open. So,
Yeah,
little things
exactly.
like that. And, especially when you have that commute and, you're relying on the public transport then and
Yeah,
something happens and, you could be stuck for hours and who gets your kid?
exactly. And I don't have any like many people who are migrants. I don't have my family here. I can't rely on,
Yeah.
to say, oh, could someone
Yeah.
pick me up? Luckily, I've got some good friends who have actually had to jump in and go and pick
Yeah.
my daughter up when I have been stuck on a train that's like not moving anywhere. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it makes a huge difference
Uh,
if you have that flexibility.
And it just gives for employees as well, it just gives them that comfort that they know they've got that if they need it. It doesn't mean,
Mm,
they need to do it all the time if that's not what they want, but if they
yeah,
can,
exactly.
they're allowed to do it as well without fear of repercussions or anything. So
Exactly.
now with your position as associate director at RPS, what does that kind of entail with what you're doing now? Are you
Um,
leading a team and stuff with where you are now?
Yeah, so we've got a team. So cost advisory in RPS is about just over 3 years old now. So I was brought in to help grow that team with my boss, Daniel Butterick, and so I'm sort of trying to lead the Sydney office, helping to grow that team. We've got a great team. We've got recruited quite recently, so we've got a couple of new people in our team, which is lovely to see. And yeah, we're sort of growing that team to um, to take on the additional workload that we're getting from our sort of our repeat business and our clients.
So you're leading the team,
The Sydney office,
the
yes.
Sydney office, yeah? Okay, great. So from a leadership perspective, what kind of, I wouldn't say ethics, but what kind of values and qualities are you looking for in your team as well?
Collaboration, because it's important that we all can work together. If there are any issues, to try and sort of tackle them head on and talk them through. But we've been quite fortunate. We've really sort of taken into account the different personalities. We've got everyone so different in our team, which I love. Everyone's got their different strengths, different weaknesses, and they can sort of ensure that we sort of work together on those. And so collaboration is a key factor and teamwork, the
Yeah,
ability to work together. Um, and also the ability to prioritize. As a QS, you get, especially a consultant QS, you get so many different projects, and you've got to figure out, okay, who's shouting the loudest? What do I need to get done first? And so yeah, you definitely need to have that ability to prioritize. And I'm fortunate that the team around me, they really are good at that, and they come to me and ask, okay, I'm not sure what I need to do first. What do you think? And then we can talk through it and go from there. Um, and then of course, having those socials that where everyone can feel included. So we try and have socials at different times of the day. So we have some breakfast sometimes, we have some lunches, some sort of early afternoon catch ups. We had a darts early afternoon thing. We don't have, and people not everyone in our team drinks, so we make sure it's not just a go for drinks, and we don't have
Mm,
some kind of activity where we can cater for everyone.
mm.
So yeah, so we try and do that.
I love that. I love that because it's the industry sadly is well linked to, you have to have a drink to be able to be
Yeah.
successful. And I think there's certainly a shift happening in that space at the moment as well. So,
Mm. Yes,
and
definitely.
so with your team, how would you like your team to look at you as a leader?
I hope they think I'm compassionate and empathetic, and kind, because I really think that kindness is underrated.
Oh, yes.
I I always say to my daughter, you must be kind above all things, because as long as you treat people how you want to be treated, then
Yes.
hopefully people can see that and they treat you the same way. So I hope they think I'm kind, and I hope they think that I'm a good listener, because I do sort of sit back and try and listen to the undertones, or the bits, things that people aren't saying, to try and delve into any issues a bit more. So yeah, so I hope that's what they say about me.
And so what does kindness look like for you?
Kindness just means, for me, just really having that, being a bit very considerate, being considerate, listening to people, and treating others in a respectful way, in an inclusive way, and just really allowing people, giving people the space to flourish, and helping to push people up. Because I find that sometimes when certain, and I know, I don't want to generalize, but sometimes women at a certain level can sort of, I feel like sometimes they trod down, like step on other women to stop them from getting to those same levels. And there's space for everyone, So I really want to help push other people up, and yeah, and rise as well. So yeah, that's how I feel.
I love that. And it's so valuable. So for other women who are in this industry and listening to this, what do you think they should be doing to do that? Not pushing other
Mm.
women down, but what could they be doing to help lift women up?
Offering advice, mentorship, sponsorship opportunities. Um, yeah, being involved in initiatives such as at NOWIC, where they have the different mentorship programs, and really helping show people how they got to where they are, and being that sort of ladder or step up to help assist. Just because you might have, fought tooth and nail to get to where you are, doesn't necessarily mean that the people coming up shouldn't have to. And if you can provide an easier alternative, or an easier method for them to get to the same level, then offer it, and
Mm.
put a hand out, and pull them up with you, because it's better for us all if we can
Mm.
help each other.
Well, we are the minority, aren't we? So,
Yes, yes.
you know,
Exactly. And you've
we
seen it
need,
in all the places you've worked, and yeah, you've done the fly in, fly out as well, which I'm
yeah,
very impressed about. But yeah.
thank you. And with that, because you sort of touched on it about the pushing people down, have you ever bore the brunt of, that I call it toxic femininity, but it's, of someone trying to push you down. Have you ever bore the brunt of that?
Yeah, yeah. And for a long time I was like, I'm never having a female line manager ever again. It's put me right off. It's put me right. And I've been very fortunate. I've had some amazing, like, male role models in my career, really sort of pushing me forward, really giving me opportunities, really believing in me. And then I've had, yeah, just a certain female who really sort of knocked my confidence.
What did that look like exactly? What actually happened, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, it was just sort of the little sort of comments, things that she kept saying, sort of being picked on. But it wasn't just to me, it was to other women as well. It wasn't like it was just me, it was other women around it. And we were like, it's something that we're doing wrong. But she wouldn't do it to the men as much. It was just like
Mm.
the women. And yeah, yeah, a lot of us had to leave that team and move elsewhere. So yeah, it was.
So would that be microaggressions from a female to a female?
It probably was, and it probably was a little bit bullying too. It got quite extreme at some point. So yeah, so it was definitely, yeah, microaggressions at a minimum, female to female, which was, yeah, quite disappointing really. Because I
Mm.
had I had joined the company because I'd heard great things about this individual and I wanted to work with them, so that's why I joined.
Mm. Which is really, it makes it quite disappointing then, isn't it? That,
It
you've heard
is.
all this great stuff and then you go there and it's like nothing that you thought it would be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then you have to leave as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've shared a few of your experiences and, personally, sorry that you've been through what you've been through. How have you lasted this amount of time in the industry? Because those sorts of experiences aren't easy to deal with on an individual
Mm.
basis. So what kind of skills have you learnt to sort of navigate them and be able to still stick it out and be in this industry?
I've realized I'm very resilient. I'm more resilient than I think I am. And it's probably, as you say, from all these different experiences, it's sort of you
Mm.
build that thick skin, which you shouldn't really need to have, but I've got that. I've had great support, for the one lady that was my aggressor. There's so many other women and other people in the industry who have been my supporters, and so
Mm.
that's what I've held on to, the support from those people both in the UK and here that have helped me sort of get to where I am today. And like my boss Daniel, he brought me across because I knew him from the UK, and he brought me to RPS, so he's been a big supporter of my career. So yeah, so I've been very fortunate, and that's probably what's kept me here, that level of support. And partly
Mm.
also having a husband who's in the industry as well, so we can talk things through. He understands it. He understands the issues as well, and
Yeah.
and that is a big help in that really helps.
And so the support has been valuable for you, like for people kind of needing support. What could you tell them in that space? Like, how could they access support, through their peers or through colleagues or friends?
Yeah, I think for someone starting in the industry, it's important for them to sort of get out and meet other people in the industry, build their own sort of network, so you can lean on them in times when
Mm.
you are struggling. But do also sort of reach out to your friends, your family, if that's possible. And discuss it. But I know it's not always easy with family because maybe they might not necessarily understand the industry or just think, oh, it's just how it is. Construction's a boys' club. You've got to deal with it. And I remember when I spoke to my mum about the issues I was having, she was like, I'm going to come down there and I'll speak to her. And I was like, oh gosh, this is not, I don't need my mum to fight my battle. But I'd love it, but So yeah, so it's very, and she works in a prison, so she's just like straight
Oh
full
yeah,
on.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah. She wouldn't
Yeah.
muck around.
No, she would. But I think like I always say to people, you really work on building your personal brand because that's what's going to keep you in this industry for a long time, having that personal brand, having those people around you, those networks, and getting that support network. And so many of my friends who I've created in the industry are true friends, lifelong
Mm,
friends that I will always have. So it really makes a difference.
that's awesome. I love that. I love that. So for the industry looking forward, what would you like to see for the industry?
Um, I would like to see more discussions around this sort of microaggressions and how companies are really going to try and work to listen more and advocate for people who are suffering microaggressions. I would like to hear more from the industry about how they are actually how they truly are inclusive, what they're doing, and evidence of that. And maybe some kind of I know it was one of the recommendations in the report, but like a whistleblowing service, having
Mm.
companies agree to be part of this whistleblowing service because they're saying that if they're doing things properly, there shouldn't be people wanting to be a whistleblower. So sort of trying to set something like that up would be great, so people feel confident that they have somewhere to go if there is a systemic problem, and that can be sort of hopefully ironed out.
So I know with Victoria specifically has got like their gender equality action plan as well, that companies
Mm,
for the large projects where the companies have to report on different things like that as well. And I know with a number of projects, there's different quotas of what they've got with how many have to be, Aboriginal corporations, how many, people with a disability, how many from a marginalised group, how many women, and all those different things. When you were talking about making the industry more inclusive moving forward, what does that look like for you? What would you like to see?
um, I know I went to the Women's Summit a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about a cultural plan. I can't remember the phrase, but I suppose it would be sort of people signing up to say, okay, we are really going to work towards, we're gonna act out what we're preaching. Um, but it's a difficult one because there's so many. It's People need to be very visible in their reporting. and be truthful and report truthful figures. And
Mm,
without that, you don't really understand the real problem
mm,
behind the issue. Like before the research, people probably said there's no issue, there's no problems, there's no microaggressions in our industry. And now just from some independent research, they can see, okay, maybe we were actually we
yeah.
were wrong. So it is a difficult one, and there's so many things I would like to see, as you say, like the ability to have flexible working,
Mm.
even things like people have carers leave and having sort of um, thinking about things like perimenopause, menopause, and people have aging parents. Trying to, there's so many issues that people have that affect their work that we really need to iron out. And another one thing I've been thinking about a lot is compassionate leave as well,
Mm,
because it affects so many people, and
mm,
the 2 days standard it's just not enough. It's not
mm.
it's not enough to even start to begin to grieve. So yeah,
No.
so there are so many. It's hard. I think things like I should say um, the workplace diversity. Sorry, what was it called? I've
The
got a brain
council or
freeze.
something, the Diversity Council or
Yeah. I think they've got some great ideas, but it's such a big issue that it's so
Mm.
hard to pin down just one way of doing things. It has to be sort of quite flexible and fluid, and it's going to take a lot of work to get anywhere near a inclusive and diverse industry.
And I think the thing is, it comes back to your point you made earlier, is that it's about just being kind because everyone comes with different needs, everyone has different requirements. Not everyone has a child, not everyone has
Yes.
care and responsibilities.
Yeah,
Some people might have aging parents that they're a carer for.
exactly.
Some people might, have different requirements because like I've heard some stories about people who are working in the industry, but they're actually pro athletes as well. So they need some time to
Mm,
be able to commit to their sport as a pro athlete as well. And, everyone comes with different needs because that's what makes us special. We're all different.
yeah.
And it's about coming from that place of kindness to be accepting of who each of us are and what our different needs are, and to be able to work with each person individually. What do you need that is going to work best for you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Well, in closing, what I'd love to ask you is
Mm.
that if you had some awesome words of wisdom direct from Vanessa's mouth that you could pass on to anyone that you wanted, what would that
Mm.
be?
Mm. Never give up, and be kind. Be kind. Yeah. I always say to my daughter, you can be anything you put your mind to, and I truly believe that is an option in the industry.
Yeah.
Um, um, but sometimes there are barriers in people's ways to do that. But yeah, never give up and be kind along the way.
I think that's very important tips because it's not an easy industry. You definitely need to, be able to keep trying because it's the industry is just full of change. I mean, we're building things, and once something's built, then you move
Yeah.
somewhere else and you build something else. So it's continual change. But
Yes, it is. Yeah.
to do it from a place of kindness as well is
Mm,
something that's much needed in this space as well. So
yeah. Yes, definitely. It's
I love
underrated.
that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and all your words of wisdom and the incredible work that you did with the research with the microaggressions, because it is, it definitely identified that they're something that we thought maybe was happening, but it's actually helped cement that now to go, no, this is actually real and it's a real problem and this is the impact it's having. So appreciate your efforts with bringing that to life and getting that out into the world as well, and to help validate, I guess, for a lot of people that it is a real issue. So thank you for everything you did in that space.
No, thank you. Thank you for the invite, Angela.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.